We're going to get started if everyone wants to find their seat. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I want to thank the Community College for routinely allowing us to use their space. Thank you to the candidates for taking the time out of their busy campaign schedules to be here. And finally, thank you to everyone that's in attendance. Being informed voters is very important in this day and age, and we appreciate that you are here. We are collecting audience questions. I have papers that I can hand out. Is there anyone who hasn't received a paper? So I'm just asking that you write the question on the back of a piece of paper and actually hand it in to me before 7 p.m. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question? So on the front of the paper there's guidance because it's a little tricky with judicial candidates. So I wrote out some guidance and to the best of your ability form a question that is appropriate, and we will go through them and pull out the repetitious ones, the ones that we've already done. And as much time as we have, we will go through the audience questions. First, a reminder, please silence your cell phones if you have them on. We ask that nobody interrupt anyone while they're speaking, including candidates. We do reserve the right to ask anyone to leave who is disruptive. Our timekeeper is right in the front. You guys are going to have 2 minutes for your introduction and then 2 minutes to answer each question, and we're going to rotate who's starting that. When you have 30 seconds remaining, Chris is going to hold up the yellow sign. And when you're done, she's going to hold up the red sign. Please try to wrap it up within 10 seconds. And now it's my honor to introduce our moderators for the evening. First, we have Shana Canty. She's a community advocate, and she currently serves as the first Pennsylvania Youth Commissioner in over 5 years, and she's appointed by our governor. And we also have, go ahead. And next we have Ava Biscup. She's a youth ambassador with Youth Infusion, which is a local nonprofit. We are grateful for their help this evening. Ladies, you can come on up.
So, evening everyone. As Maggie said, my name is Shana Ganty. I am currently the Youth Commissioner for the state of Pennsylvania. I was first appointed in September of 2023 by Governor Shapiro. I am also a communications coordinator for Monroe County Meals on Wheels, and I am currently attending SNHU, or Southern New Hampshire University, to receive my bachelor's in communications in psychology.
Hi guys, my name is Ava. I am a current senior at East Stroudsburg High School South. I am also on the board of directors for Youth Infusion, like Maggie mentioned, the local nonprofit that we have here. And this fall I'm going to American University to study political science. So we are going to start with some opening statements, and we ask each candidate to provide us with an introduction. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond.
Hi everybody, I'm Janet Jackson and I'm running for judge of the Court of Common Pleas of Monroe County. I've lived in Stroudsburg for many years and I practiced with Dominic Lockwood, who was my partner also for many years. I've handled just about every kind of case that the Court of Common Pleas hears, and I've been in a courtroom almost every day of my career. I've also sat across the desk from people that are having some of the worst moments of their lives, and I've listened and guided them and helped them through the court process, whether it's by going to court or by sometimes convincing them that court's not the right answer. I didn't grow up dreaming of being a judge or planning to be a politician. In fact, this is the first time I'm in this role of a politician or a person running for office, but I've always wanted to do things that helped people, and I've been doing that for more than 30 years as a lawyer. I've learned that judges have a unique opportunity to apply fairness, to be people of integrity, and to make a difference in our community. And when I heard that two of our most experienced judges were going to be ending their judicial careers at the same time, I wanted to take the first opportunity to run for this position. I've also spent a lot of time coaching mock trial, doing the fairy tale trials to help teach children about the law, and I really look forward to the opportunity to be one of the two next judges in Monroe County.
Hey everyone, Alex Merrick. I'm going to take a little bit different type of pattern. A little bit about me.
Hold it closer.
Yeah, 8 microphones. So anyway, I guess I'm going to give a little bit more of my background as compared to worry about the whole judge stuff a little bit later on. I am a father of 3. Have 3, 13, 10, and 7. Keeps us very busy around here. Been married for 16 years next month, so got that anniversary coming up, which is fantastic. I'm a very family-focused type of individual. Now, as for my background, I'm a former police officer, former federal criminal investigator. I served in the United States Army. I have a bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry. I had a master's degree in criminal justice administration, and of course the law degree. I've been licensed to practice law since 2007. Have a variety of practice, including criminal law, family law, intellectual property law. I'm a registered patent attorney as well, and litigation with both federal courts and state courts. I clerked at this court for Judge Mark, so that was an absolutely invaluable experience in knowing the ins and outs of what the everyday duties a judge has to take care of. And I'm getting close. But also, I've got some variety of practice, and I'm sure we can get into that as we kind of move along. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Best. I want to start by thanking the League for holding this event, along with NCNW, which I've been a proud member for many years, and of course, Youth Infusion. Thank you for being involved. We appreciate it. I've handled a number of different types of cases over my career. I started here at Monroe County. I stayed in Monroe County the entire time I practiced. I started in Broadheadsville. I practiced in Monroe Summit. I moved eventually to practicing in Stroudsburg, but I practiced in Monroe County my whole career. Over that time, I've handled family, criminal, estate, civil litigation, all the way up through complex class action and consumer protection litigation. I've seen it all. I've handled it all in the state and federal systems. It's all been done from Monroe County. A couple things that I'm particularly proud of. I fought for families and consumers my entire career. I've done it in a number of capacities, starting in the Southwest Pennsylvania Legal Aid Society, fighting pro bono for women who are victims of abuse. Brought that experience back here to Monroe County, where I continue to do a lot of pro bono work and pro bono work with the Monroe County Bar Association, which I was recently elected vice president. And that is extremely humbling to me, because it is my peers and the other lawyers in Monroe County who entrusted me with that position, many of whom asked me to run for this position. I'm also particularly proud of starting the Consumer Protection Division for the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, where we continue to fight for consumers who may not be able to do so on their own. It is that fight, is that passion for Monroe County protecting its citizens that brings me here today. I look forward to talking with you more about my experience and why I believe in judge in Monroe County. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
for all of you for being here. It's very important that you get to know who we are before you elect one of us or two of us to the bench. I'm Kelly Lombardo. What's important about me, I feel, is that I am born and raised here in Monroe County, and I've dedicated my career and my entire life to this community. My husband and I are raising our 2 children in Jackson Township. We have a daughter, Leah, she's 12. Our son, Nicholas, is 8. We go to Pocono Mountain School District, so we're heavily invested in our school district and our county. I got my start here as an attorney. I'm an attorney for 16 years. I began as a law clerk to Jennifer Seabaum when she first took the bench in 2010. And so I'd like to say I was her right-hand person for 2 years. And I've had the experience of being in and out of the courtroom pretty much every day for those 2 years. Following her, learning from her, both on the bench, behind the bench, drafting opinions, doing research. And so I feel I'm well-rounded in that respect. From there, I was recruited to join the district attorney's office for several years under the direction of E. David Christine Jr. I was a prosecutor, focusing on anything from DUIs to criminal homicides. I've had hundreds of cases, I've had thousands of hours of courtroom experience, anywhere from preliminary hearings to jury trials and taking cases all the way to appeal. I decided to have a family at that time and settle down a little bit and join the civil practice. And I work with Lori Serrato in our elder law firm. I also am the solicitor for the Monroe County Area Agency on Aging for the last 10 years. And I work to protect our older adults for protective service cases to make sure they're not victims of financial exploitation and neglect. So I've dedicated my life to anywhere from children to our older adults, and I'd like to bring that experience to the bench. So thank you for having me.
Stand as well. Can everybody hear me without the mic? No. All right, thank you to the League of Women Voters and the National Council of Negro Women and Youth Infusion for putting on this forum and giving us an opportunity to present ourselves. My name is Jamie Levy, and I'm running to be a judge in the Court of Common Pleas. In terms of my legal experience, I started off as a law student working for the Legal Aid Society, helping victims of domestic abuse obtain protective orders. As an attorney, I spent nearly every day of my career over the last almost 25 years inside of a courtroom fighting for my clients' rights, trying to get them the justice they deserve. I'm very familiar with the rule of law, and I'm very familiar with the rules of evidence. Most recently, I've been elected to be a magisterial district judge in East Stroudsburg, and I have 3 municipalities in my district. As a magisterial district judge, I preside over a wide range of cases, civil cases, landlord-tenant cases, zoning law cases, and criminal cases. I do bail hearings, arraignments, preliminary hearings, and I also preside over summary trials. During those summary trials, witnesses are presented, evidence is presented, oral arguments presented from attorneys. I make decisions with regard to legal issues. I make determinations based on objections, and I ultimately find and make determinations as to guilt. During the guilt phases, I assign monetary penalties, community service, mental health services, and I even put people in jail. I'm also a very active member and committed to community service. In the community, I'm a volunteer firefighter with Delaware Water Gap Fire Department. I'm a volunteer EMT with Bushkill Ambulance Company. I'm a Rotarian. I'm one of the founding members and treasurer for the Stroudsburg Mountaineer Foundation. I got 10 seconds left. I'm proud of the fact that I've raised and have 3 wonderful children that I'm very proud of. I think my asset, I think my abilities, my skill set, and my legal experience will make me a great asset on the Court of Common Pleas, and I look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're now going to start with our first round of questions.
Okay. Thank you all again. All right, so the first set of questions comes from the League of Women Voters of Monroe County. We will ask one question at a time, rotating who answers first, and you will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. So the first question is, why are you running for the Court of Common Appeals, and what do you hope to accomplish if elected?
Court of Common Pleas because I believe that my experience that I've gained first as the first full-time public defender in Monroe County and later as a civil lawyer in practice in Monroe County has prepared me well to help the court, as I mentioned earlier, now that two of our most experienced judges are stepping down. And that is what motivated me. I mentioned that I've never been in politics before. I do think that what I want to accomplish is keeping politics out of the courtroom. Politics don't belong in the courtroom, and judicial races are not supposed to be about politics. We have canons of ethics that tell us that there should be no politics in the courtroom. And that's because every person who comes into the courtroom, whatever their background, wherever they've come from, whatever experiences they've had, whether they're rich or whether they're poor, has a right to be heard and to have a fair, impartial judge listen to all the facts, apply the law, and then make a decision. So as a candidate, I'm getting a lot of questions. Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? I'm a bipartisan candidate, and I'm a nonpartisan candidate by the rules of ethics, but also because I've always supported people based upon their history of service and their knowledge and my trust in them in terms of what they're going to do for this community. That's what I'm asking you to look at. That's what I'm going to bring to the bench.
For me, running for this position is primarily about service. As I mentioned, I'm a former police officer, served in the United States Army. It's just a continuation for me. It's just part of my personality is to serve both for my family, to make a difference in my community, and also, I guess part of the rationale as well is I believe I have the appropriate attitude and demeanor to make the appropriate decision. And Jenny hit up a lot of good highlights and the points of what a judge needs to be. The judge has to have, obviously, the highest of integrity, has to make decisions not based upon any political motivations or outside influence, and has to put aside the personal beliefs and follow the law. And that's really what I feel I can bring to the bench is I have a really innate sense of justice, of fairness, and making decisions, whether or not they're going to be popular or difficult. It's just part of who I am and what it's going to be just very equal application of justice in law across the board. And that's why.
When I heard that we were going to have 2 retirements, a couple lawyers in the Bar Association came up to me and asked me if I would consider running. I've served as a hearing officer, standing hearing officer in the Monroe County Court of Common Pleas for over 9 years. In that position, I've decided hundreds of cases. I've managed a docket, worked with litigants, worked with attorneys, made rulings on objections, issued written decisions, and really worked with the parties to try to solve problems. I'm a problem solver by nature. And my approach to how I handled those hearings has worked because we've reduced the length of time it took to issue these decisions on these cases. We were resolving more cases than we're going to hearing. I can tell you I settled about 98, 99% of my cases that appeared before me. And we did it by using different mechanisms within the law to actually create different resolutions to the problem that you wouldn't necessarily think of, thinking outside the box. Those lawyers that appeared before me, those lawyers that had hearings with me, were actually the ones that came to me and said, would you consider running? Would you consider running for judge of common pleas? What you bring as a hearing officer is so important that we would like to see it on the bench. And when I stepped back and listened to them and talked it through with them, I understood. and I appreciate it, that if I could bring to the bench the ability to work through cases more efficiently, effectively, use all of my experience from all my diverse areas of law to work through our caseload that's, by the way, far too large for the number of judges we have. If I can do that all while serving the community and helping the litigants and the lawyers, sign me up. And I can.
I've had the privilege of practicing before both Judge Zulik and Judge Worthington, and I can say we're going to be at a loss when they leave. And the reason is because both of them have integrity. And so I'm running because I feel that we can't lose sight of keeping integrity in the courtroom. And for those who know me, and if you get to know me, I firmly believe that you have to have someone that you can trust, that you know will take the time to do the research to make the right decision, not a decision based upon politics, based upon gender or race, but someone that will take the time to listen to the people in front of them. And what I appreciated when I was a prosecutor, and even now as a litigant, I appreciated the opportunity to be heard. As an advocate, we want to represent our clients diligently, and having the opportunity to do that before a court is what moves the process along and gives people the right to have a voice. And so I want to be the type of judge that will give people a voice. Whether you're there with an attorney who can advocate for you, or whether you're there by yourself, you have an opportunity to present your case. Because most likely you're there not for a good reason. You're there because you're either suing someone or you're being sued. It's probably a terrible day in your life. And so you need someone who's going to be compassionate and be fair, but also bring justice. As a prosecutor, I definitely know what it's like to make sure that our community is safe. As a mom, I feel the same way, but I also have compassion. I want people to have a voice and to make sure that there's equal opportunity for people to come to court. So I feel strongly about keeping integrity in the court and giving people an opportunity.
As an attorney, I strived every day to bring justice to my clients, to make sure that the playing field was level and that their rights were asserted. As a district judge, I do that to every resident that comes before me in my district, to make sure that they have an opportunity to be heard, that they have a level playing field, that they understand the process, that they're informed, and I take the stigma out of the courtroom. I get a lot of people that come into my courtroom and they're scared. I get people who are crying. They don't understand, they don't know what's going on, they don't understand the process. And I take the time to make sure they understand the process, they understand what's going to happen, how we're going to proceed, and in many instances, I actually read the law so that they understand why they're there. And that takes away some of the fear, because there's a lot of fear that's associated with the judicial system. And I want to be able to take that fear away, and I want people to have trust and faith in our institution, because it is a really great institution. And on the Court of Common Pleas, I want to be able to provide justice to everyone in the county, not just the people in my district or my clients. And I think that I could do that as a judge of the Court of Common Pleas.
Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you guys so much. So for the second question, we're asking you to describe your legal experience in civil, criminal, family, and orphans divisions, and why these experiences qualify you to be a judge. And this time we're starting with Alex.
So, try to keep track of each one of these things. For the criminal, just the extensive experience, not only as a police officer, as a federal criminal investigator, but also I started out my legal practice, came out my solo shingle, right out of law school, and I just hadn't graduated the bar, doing criminal defense, and then having an opportunity to be an assistant district attorney for Northampton County, handling different variations of cases, all across the board, primarily white collar crimes and narcotics. chief of the college union while I was there. As for the civil litigation, I have a smorgasbord of experience covering that, especially now with Newman Williams is where I'm practicing. Everything from municipal law, landlord-tenant issues, construction contracts, disagreements, zoning issues, also doing a lot of defense work for municipalities, including Monroe County, Northampton County, Hardin County, Luzerne County. So it's covering a wide variety of those issues. I also did family law, practicing, starting out as well. I tried to stepping away from that as of recently, and then trying to anything else. What am I not missing? Yeah, I did family law. Oh, you wrote, yeah, orphans courts. Anyway, I say that orphans court is part of the only one I don't have experience, at least in Pennsylvania. I did handle some juvenile issues, both in the criminal aspect of it, with the district attorney's office. So that pretty much gives a nutshell of my experience in all those areas.
I have a very wide array of things that I practice, so I've covered every one of these. Try to be brief. With criminal, I've handled everything from a traffic ticket through a murder trial. My partners have done a lot of criminals. A lot of times I would share trials with them, particularly the more complicated ones, because we need an extra set of hands. With regard to civil, again, I've done so many different types of things, from construction litigation to auto accidents to premises liability torts, and now consumer protection and complex class action cases. I've done those in state and federal court. I've done mortgage litigation, loan litigation, all of those different things on the civil side. On the family side, family really is where I got my start. I said I started there when I was at the Southwestern Pennsylvania Legal Aid Society. I kept practicing in family when I moved to Monroe County after law school, and until that time when I was appointed as a standing divorce master, at which point I was doing family in a different capacity. I was doing it as a hearing officer. I did that for about 9 years. So I really have quite a bit of experience doing all sorts of family law. On the orphans court side, when I was starting my practice, I did quite a bit of orphans court litigation. I did a lot of guardianships. I did estate litigation and probate work all through the orphans court for many, many years. And now I still assist from time to time with some of my partners who do some litigation when they need an extra set of hands on a trial. So throughout my years, I've done all of that. I've done everything in Monroe County as well. So I've gotten some experience with all the different courts and different judges here. So I would say I have a pretty varied experience, definitely touched every one of those things throughout my career.
Think better on your feet. Except when I move forward, sorry. You know, when I got into this field, I never wanted to be a general practitioner. I chose to specialize because I thought, for me, I wanted to see something through to the end. Make sure that I was really well-rounded in that particular field. I will say that in the beginning, you know, in law school, I was working with the civil law clinic for several years while I was a student, and that opened my eyes to family law, civil practice. I handled divorces under the supervision of other attorneys, civil cases. I've done workman's compensation cases. But I decided to join the district attorney's office because I had a passion for criminal law. And although I've never been on the defense side, I can say that I've seen both sides of that. So my extensive experience as a criminal prosecutor, and for the last 10 years, I've been doing orphans court litigation, which is guardianships. I do a lot of special needs, trusts and estate planning for children with special needs, older adults. So I've really honed my skills on the estate planning and orphans court litigation, practicing transactional work in that respect. But I would like to say that, you know, we've all gone to law school. We've all gone through the learning different types of law, and the law is ever changing. So I'm confident that no matter what practice area I have in front of me, I'm going to do a good job, because I'm going to research the law, and I'm going to make sure it applies to the facts that are before me. And so even if I've never done a bankruptcy case, I'm confident that I can figure it out.
In terms of legal experience, like Kelly was saying, Attorney Lombardo was saying, it's hard to be a jack of all trades and a master vendor. So I also specialized as an attorney. I was a civil litigator, trial attorney for over 20 years. And on the civil side of things, like I was saying, I was just fighting for the rights of my clients. I only ever represented people and individuals and helped them assert their rights. As a district judge, I have experience with criminal matters and juvenile matters. Some of the attorneys sitting up on the table here have been before me on juvenile matters and criminal matters. So they get the first-hand experience with me on how I preside over those certain types of cases. I'm very active, especially in juvenile matters, because I have a great deal of interest in making sure that children have everything they need and make sure that they get the services that are available to them. It's probably not surprising that they don't necessarily always get them in their home, and then they wind up in my court. So I take special interest in making sure that they get mental health services, anger management services when it's necessary. As a matter of fact, I've worked with Attorney Jackson. She was really getting a matter before me as well, and I made sure that her juvenile client got the services that they needed as well. Basically, you want to be a problem solver. You want to make sure that in the juvenile setting and in the criminal setting that you're not going to have recidivism, that you're not going to have these people that come back and in a revolving door, especially when they're kids, because you get an opportunity at that level to nip things in the bud and make sure that they're prepared to not come back to your court on more serious offenses, criminal offenses, as adults. That's basically my experience. I mean, I have a wide berth of experience, and then my time is up. Thank you.
I'm going to try standing. They say that imitation is the greatest form of flattery, so it's interesting to hear the other candidates use my mottos and my lines. I am the most experienced candidate. I am not going to tell you about the experience of my partners. I'm going to tell you about my experience. I have been the lawyer who has tried everything from a traffic offense, a simple assault, a terroristic threat, an aggravated assault on a police officer. I have tried the number of felonies that's necessary for a person to be considered adequate to be a death penalty qualified lawyer. I have tried a death penalty case. I'm the lawyer that has that experience. That is not the limit of my experience, because I've been a lawyer for more than 30 years. I have tried will challenge cases, multiple, in Monroe County and in other counties. I have been appointed as a guardian by several of the judges of the Court of Common Pleas because they trusted me with the lives of young children who had lost their parents to murder, and veterans who had lost themselves to PTSD. I have the experience in every area of practice. I've been through my own divorce and my own custody case. And when I look a person in the eye and they're feeling that kind of pain and trying to make the right decisions, particularly for their children, I'm able to help them. And I'm able to bring them to a place where they can listen to reason, which is not always easy. And everybody who's had anyone in their family go through this knows it. I will bring that experience to the bench, and I think I missed, civil law. I do workers' compensation, injury cases, every kind of civil case. And of course, divorce and the cases that are in orphans court, those are civil cases as well.
All right. This question in advance is for Patrick And also let me know if you guys need to repeat them one more time. It's one of those tricky questions. All right. In Pennsylvania, the law allows minors to seek a judicial bypass. Thank you. In Pennsylvania, the law allows minors to seek a judicial bypass to obtain abortion care without parental consent. Given the importance of impartiality on the bench, how would you approach cases involving judicial bypass requests, especially those that involve sensitive issues like reproductive health, youth anatomy, and family dynamics? And again, we will start with Pat. I can repeat it, that's no worries, if you'd like me to repeat it, yeah. All right.
I got the gist, but it's like,
No, it's fine, like I said, it was a chunky question, so no worries. So, in Pennsylvania, the law allows minors to seek a judicial bypass to obtain abortion care without parental consent. Given the importance of impartiality on the bench, how would you approach cases involving judicial bypass requests, especially those that involve sensitive issues like reproductive health, youth anatomy, and family dynamics?
Youth autonomy, just for the record.
All right. To be fair, we discussed questions like this in advance of the Bar Association. I expected one to come up. So I'll tell you very honestly, this question violates the rules of judicial conduct. I can't answer it. So what I will tell you is this. As with every case, I will look at the law, I will look at the facts, I will apply the facts to the law, and I will render a decision consistent with the same.
You can talk about your approach and your philosophy.
No, I can't.
We're not allowed to give any statements with regard to any decisions that we
Yes.
may make in the future.
Yep.
So the judicial conduct rules are clear, and we're all governed by them.
Yeah,
So we
understood.
can't give any indications on how we would rule on any particular matter, because that would be unfair.
Yep.
That's not trusting.
So just answer it to the parameters that you possibly can.
and I think to add to that, the problem becomes, if we were to give an opinion, no matter what that opinion was, if that case came before us as judges, we would have to recuse ourselves from hearing that type of case.
Right.
And so all that does is clutter the courts, because now we're passing that case on to another judge who already has their hands full with cases of their own. So I think to protect, two of us that could potentially be future judges, it's just best that we don't get into what we would or would not
Sure.
do.
Yeah, we can move on. Are the other candidates okay with that, though?
Yeah, no. Thank you for the question. Understand the impact and what you are looking for. It's just you can't get a response from us with regard to, or any meaningful response.
We all agree, we're all bound by the same rules,
Yep, that's fine.
and they really protect the
Sorry.
court and people.
We can agree that I pronounced that word wrong, so we can agree on that.
All right, so we're going to move to the next set of questions, which comes from the Greater Pocono section of the National Council of Negro Women. We each have 2 minutes to respond to the following questions. The first question is, what measures will you take to recognize and eliminate implicit biases in your courtroom and among court personnel?
Well, I feel that it starts with education. Obviously, we don't want to admit that there are biases in the world that we live in, but there are, explicit or implicit. And so I believe that when you have a judge who can recognize those biases, we can eliminate them. I believe it starts in the court so that we can teach and educate our staff and the public. And of course, if you see that type of bias, stop it right in its tracks. And I think it starts at home too. So, as a mother, I try to instill that in my children to move forward. And so when they become productive members of society, they'll instill it in the people that they need. But I do feel that it starts with recognition to make sure that everyone has, like I said earlier, an equal voice, an equal opportunity to come in to court, to be heard, and it shouldn't matter what those biases are, to make sure that we can eliminate them and treat everyone fairly. I guess it took me 2 minutes, but that's how I feel.
Simply put, in my court, there will be no biases. It's if you see something, say something, sort of atmosphere that I will encourage, because there will absolutely be no tolerance for any bias in my court. That's not a place for bias whatsoever. And if it ever rears its ugly head in my court, it will be quelled and dealt with immediately. Because, like I said, there's no room for bias and justice, and two are opposites. So I don't need a lot of time to explain that either. Just need zero time.
Okay, Judge, maybe you hit some of my buttons. First of all, implicit bias is the kind of bias we don't recognize we have.
Yes, sir.
Okay, implicit bias is what we all have, and we don't have any way of acknowledging it unless we think about it, talk about it, and address it. I have been in a courtroom representing a client when another person came up behind me to a microphone. I didn't represent that person. I wasn't really paying a lot of attention. I was looking down at my phone, or I was looking at my notes for the next thing I thought I was going to have, and I heard the judge's voice change in a way that was intolerant of the person who had come up to the microphone. And I was not surprised when I turned around and saw that it was a person of color, not dressed however the judge may have thought people should be dressed. And the judge engaged in a completely different type of dialogue than had been dealt to the last person who was at the microphone. That person was certainly not Judge Levy. I'm talking about a Court of Common Pleas judge. And I'm telling you it because I feel it. I feel it when my client, who's a person of color, is treated differently than my white client, both of whom may be college students, both of whom may have done a similar dumb thing that lots of young people do, but the person of color gets a different voice from the judge. I don't want to be that kind of judge. And I recognize that I grew up in an Irish family with, in Scranton, where there wasn't a whole lot of diversity. I'm sure I have some implicit bias, but I'm going to work hard to be as fair as I can to every person who comes before me, and to think about cultural issues, and to think about where the person comes from and the language difficulties, and whether someone might be autistic, and that courtroom might be a much scarier place to them than it is to the average person. That's what I'm going to bring to the court.
I think my answer is going to be quite a bit shorter and a little bit more simplistic, where anything of that nature, I would not expect to see that in my court whatsoever. It would be, I would hope, an anomaly to see anything of that nature, which would be obviously readily addressed. I am the type of individual, I lead by example. So my example of how to treat another person, which is going to be pretty much the same across the board, no matter who they are, where they come from, race, gender, ethnicity, doesn't matter. You treat everybody the same. And that's where it's really the phrase, equal treatment under the law, fair justice. And that's just what I expect, and that's what will be the courts. It's just making sure everybody is going to be treated fairly the same across.
So part of the problem with going last is you end up in a position where you inevitably have to agree with your opponents. But there's a lot of good points that were made. The reality is that an implicit bias is one which you are not aware of. The only way that you become aware of it is through education. And I have done that. I've done that through formal education, through continuing legal education about implicit biases, through workshops with the court, things of that nature. But I've also done it through my community work. So I mentioned earlier that, and it's great that this question came from the NCNW, but I've been a lifetime member of the NCNW for years. And I've done that in part because I want to work with other people who don't look like me. And I've said for years, I am an obviously white male. I am. But until people that look like me start fighting for people that don't, nothing will ever change. And it is through my work with NCNW and in the Legal Redress Committee of the NAACP where I would work toward helping on the court and other institutions on those biases, but also working on my own, which I may or may not know that I have. And all you can do is strive for perfection, but you will never reach it. It is a constant battle for which you must continue to work, continue to strive, and make sure that you're doing everything in your power to be fair and to make sure that your biases are not affecting the result. And while we talked a lot about race and gender and what we call obvious types of biases, there are ones you may not even think about. There's class biases, there's professional biases, there's all of these different things that you see in court, and you have to be aware of them, you have to work towards it, you just always have to try to be a better person. So, you have my word, I'll always try to be a better person.
Alrighty, so the next question from the NCNW is how do you believe judges should be held accountable to the communities they serve, especially when rulings disproportionately impact people of color?
How are judges accountable to the community that they serve? Judges in the Court of Common Pleas, the Court of Common Pleas is a court of record. So there's a transcript of all the proceedings that go on in the Court of Common Pleas. Anybody could take a look, read it, read any decision that comes out or from a judge, and if they believe that there is some sort of bias or some sort of racially motivated determination, there are agencies, there are canons that guide judges in their determinations, and the AOPC can get involved, or you could get others involved, watchdog organizations that will come down and make sure there's some sort of ethical violation or ethical sanctions that are imposed. I honestly, I mean, there are 9 magisterial district judges in the county, and there are 7 Court of Common Pleas judges. And I think we have some of the best judges around. I mean, I haven't seen anything come out of any of those courts, and I haven't really seen, for the most part, anybody lodge any complaints about any of those judges. So I think we're doing an effective job just having these forums, educating people, educating our judges, and forcing them to be accountable.
The truth is, there aren't very many ways to hold a judge accountable. That's why your choice of who's going to be a judge is more important than any choice you're going to make for a very long time. We all heard everyone's opinions about everything in the national elections. Judges of the Court of Common Pleas are the people who decide every important decision about your life. Whether you're a grandparent trying to maintain some custodial rights to your grandchild, or whether you're a person who's named in a will and think that someone else is taking away what you were supposed to receive, whether you're a person who's been a victim of a crime, every single thing that matters to our day-to-day existence is decided by the Court of Common Pleas, and you're not going to make a more important decision, which is why I'm really glad you're all here listening. It's really important, because judges are judges for 10-year terms, and then it's a retention vote. You rarely see a judge not be retained. You pretty much have to do something very awful sell children to juvenile facilities, something like that, to lose your job as a judge. Make your decision carefully. Make sure that the persons you're putting on the bench are people you're going to trust with your lives, because that's what you have to do.
And again, this is going to be very short and concise, where as Patrick said, you get to this point where all these candidates should be saying pretty much the same thing to you, where the judge should be making decisions not based upon any sort of outside beliefs other than the equal application of the law to the individuals, no matter what. It shouldn't matter, again, especially in race, it should not have any impact on how the law is applied to the individual in the court case. And that's the most important thing to consider, is that the judge is going to do that each and every time, no matter what. And because then you won't have an issue of trying to have to worry about how to do, how does a community hold a judge accountable for the decisions. The judge shouldn't have to be held accountable for the decision because they made the right decision in the first place.
While it's true that legally there's not a whole lot you can do once a judge is elected, I will tell you this. I've spent my career as a lawyer trying to hold judges accountable. Now, you can't do that with many political forces. But you could with moral and, I guess, peer pressure, right? So, as part of the Bar Association, as Vice President of the Bar Association, I've been very active with the Court and Government Relations Committee. And it's a committee in which the Bar Association, the lawyers of the community, talk about different ways we can improve the court. Through that committee, I can tell you more than once I've walked into a judge's chambers and told them what I thought that they could be doing better. They don't always like to see me. But I'll tell you this, I am not like that. So you have my promise that if I'm elected, not only will I continue to go to the Court and Government Relations Committee and work with the Bar Association very openly and honestly, I will be accountable to the community directly. I will listen, and I will make sure that I will always do a better job. If there's something I'm doing wrong or could be doing better, I want the lawyers to tell me. I want to be better at it. I don't assume I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. But I always want to strive to be perfect. And it is, unless you are able to talk to me openly and honestly without fear of retribution, unless you're able to have a forum where you can come and have those discussions, that won't happen. The judges who sit in their ivory towers without any discussion with the lawyers, they forget. I won't forget. I love the Bar Association. I love the community. I'm going to continue to work with the lawyers. I'm going to continue to work with the bar. I'm going to continue to work with my community organizations. And if you see me on the street and you don't like something that I did, tell me, because I'll fix it.
Yes, there's a judicial code of conduct, and there's an ethics board that governs judges. But I think the bottom line, and I think it was stated here, is that you have to be accountable to yourself. You have to be the one that can go home at night, put your head on that pillow, and go to sleep, knowing that you made the right decision. So, yes, I agree that the community should be able to feel comfortable enough coming forward and saying, I feel there's room for improvement here. But you need to elect someone and choose someone that has that integrity, that you know from day one that they're going to do right by you because they're a good person at heart and they believe in the same morals and ethics that you do. Before we even get to making a mistake and being held accountable, you have to choose someone that you share the same ideals with because, as Janet said, there are important issues coming before the court that are affecting your life and how things are going to happen in your world. So make sure you choose someone that has an integrity, that is truthful and honest, that you trust.
Alrighty, and finally, the NCMW asks if you could share specific experiences that you've had working with African American individuals or communities in a legal context, and what you have learned from those experiences.
I'm involved with the Criminal Justice Advisory Board, which meets monthly, and Mike Mancuso, who's here, is the chair of the committee. It's a very big group of people who are all concerned with how justice is being delivered in this county, and people of color are certainly among the people that we're trying to help as we develop a program for individuals leaving incarceration to help them to be in a better position, to make better choices, to live where they can get to work, get to treatment if they continue to need treatment, which a lot of people do. We have a lot of people in prison who have mental health issues, who have drug addictions, and if they're gonna get out of jail, it's not an option of just keeping them in jail forever, and it's a very expensive option if we chose that. We're trying to make decisions that make sure that there's some other alternatives to the type of behavior that got them to be in jail to begin with. But as a lawyer, I have frequently represented people who have been stopped on the highway, where I've had to challenge their probable cause to stop the person of color with the out-of-state license plate on Route 80 for what seemed to be made-up reasons. I've had those cases. I've taken the cases before the Court of Common Pleas. Sometimes the judges have agreed with me, sometimes they haven't. But in each instance, the case then went up to the appellate courts. And in each instance, the appellate court said, no, this is not what we're gonna do to people. We're not gonna stop people because of the color of their skin and have them stand at the side of the road for an hour and a half waiting for someone to come with drug dogs because they wouldn't agree to an illegal search. Okay, that's what I've done as a lawyer, and I will pay attention to these issues, and I will be fair. I will not assume that the police are doing the wrong thing. I will apply the law. And when I've done it as a lawyer, we've been successful in the appellate courts because the law was as I was arguing it. Thanks.
The experience I can share is primarily from the law enforcement perspective of dealing with minorities communities. Especially having been a police officer in the city of New York, where the department was predominantly white, and obviously the population of inner New York City is African American. So it was a very interesting dynamic because, I mean, we get accusations all the time of just for that very same thing. We stop somebody because of their race. It wasn't because of that whatsoever, because we were trained and have that ingrained upon us that you treat everybody the same. You don't worry about what race they are or what's any of that thing when you're trying to enforce the law. Now, and that also applied when I was an assistant district attorney. I take each and every case and look at it individually and the facts and the circumstances of how that person became into contact with the criminal justice system. And then just, again, it has absolutely no,
just want to make sure I was answering the question, but I hinted to this earlier. I have worked with a number of different groups with people of color. So that includes the NCNW, who asked the question, of which I've been a lifetime member for many, many years. I've been involved with the NAACP. What have I done with those groups? Well, I have believed my entire life, but more specifically my entire legal career, that you should not necessarily have to pay for a lawyer to learn about the law. I have worked very hard to try to bring free legal education to the public. One of the things that we have done is held public information seminars. We've done that in conjunction with the Bar Association, with the NCNW. Most recently, and this was just I think a month ago, we did one on credit reporting and credit report issues. We did that in this room, actually. We talked a lot about different ways that your credit report can have mistakes on it that could ruin your chances to get a mortgage or a car. It's not always about criminal law, it's not always about arrest. There's a lot here. There's a lot of room to meet communities where they are. And I've been doing that. And with the Bar Association, with NCNW, we're continuing to do that. And I see Charisse here, we're working with the Bar Association and Metamorphosis to provide additional legal services to the community. Even recently, working on the Pardon Project and things with her organization to try to make sure that we're providing as much free legal help as we could. Free legal education, free legal help. So what have I done to meet the communities? I've met them where they are. That's the answer. I do what I can to meet people where they are and provide what I can to help the community always.
I'll share a story with you. When I was a prosecutor, my first experience with, I guess you'd call it racial profiling, was a road rage incident where two cars pulled over in a road rage and out stepped a white male with a gun against a 6.5-foot tall black male without a gun. And the victim became the male with the gun, even though he was the one that shot at the African American for this road rage incident. So that was my first experience with how do I handle this. And the way I handled it was, and as I did as a prosecutor, put yourself in the shoes of all of those parties. How did the victim feel? How did the defendant feel? How did the police handle it? And what I've learned, and I think what I'll bring to the court, is to continue to do that. That you're making decisions that impact people's lives, no matter who you are, and no matter what color you are, or what race, or what gender. And so I feel very strongly to give people a voice, as I've said, to listen to all sides of the story, because things get flipped around based upon these biases. So that was my first experience, not my last. But I hope that what I've learned is to educate and to also recognize and make sure that everyone has a voice and everyone has equal opportunity, and it doesn't matter what we look like, why we come before the court, but that you have a fair judge that's going to listen, treat everyone equally.
As an attorney and as a judge, I take it upon myself as a personal obligation to encourage young people to take part in institutional professions that have been historically dominated by people that don't look like them. Because truly, I believe that the only way to eradicate racism is to breed it out. It's basically to just go into those positions where you are feeling the pressures or that racism exists and change it. I deal with a lot of law enforcement officers in my court, and more I'm starting to see people of color take those positions, and they never did that before. And that eliminates the tolerance, because if and they become tolerant in racism and discrimination for people that don't look the way they do. So when people of color go into those positions, they eliminate the tolerance. They don't allow it. It doesn't happen anymore, and people begin to see that, hey, we're all the same. As a Jewish person, the only Jewish judge in the county, ever been in the county, there was a point in time where Jewish people weren't even allowed to practice law in this county. And now we can. And people begin to see that, hey, you know, Jewish people are just like we are. There's really no difference. There's no people. Absolutely. And by integrating, by getting along, by mingling, it takes away all the fear of the unknown, and it gets rid of the tolerance, and it ends the discrimination. So I just encourage people in all communities to work alongside of each other, understand each other, and if you see something, say something, and zero tolerance. Like I said earlier, do not tolerate anything that even has a hint of discrimination, anything that even has a hint of bias. And if you do not tolerate it, others won't tolerate it as well.
Thank you so much, and now it's time for audience questions, so I'm going to turn it back over to you.
I apologize for that question that was asked earlier that we couldn't ask. I figured one of the questions wouldn't be plausible. It was really challenging to come up with questions to ask that you guys could actually answer. And that problem came up with a lot of audience questions, so if you don't hear your question asked, it's because I can't actually ask it. So the first question that we're gonna ask is, how have you demonstrated leadership in your legal career, and how will that translate into your role as judge?
This is a little bit of a challenge for me, and at least in specifically dealing with my legal career, wherein it's, you know, I never sought out any sort of leadership position as an attorney so much, and I'm going to unfortunately diverge into more of the aspects of leadership just in general for me, because there's other areas that I can point to. More specifically, for leadership areas, that when I was in the military, I was in a leadership position throughout my military career, where I was always either put in charge of a platoon or a squad or a classroom, in the classroom situation in the Army education. You always have a classroom leader, and I was always placed in those types of positions and leading by example, both in the PT section, for everything that I did there. And then getting into more of a leadership, you know, kind of leading by example as a coach, coaching various sports, Little League, football, and everything else. It's just a matter of having the comfort level of and leading by example. I expect that I'm going to be the one that is going to be setting that example, and I have absolutely no issue in doing that. I know I've seen a little bit of reticent at times. You know, I'm admittedly an unapologetically introvert, so that's really part of my personality, and I try to get out of that shell as much as I can, you know, leading by example.
there's a reason that there's so many lawyer jokes. Not everyone likes lawyers. I know that, but I'm working on it. So when we go out with the Bar Association and we get tables at the different festivals to try to interface with the public and show them what we do and what we provide for free, which people don't even always know, I'm doing what I can to improve the legal community and the community at large. Specifically, with leadership positions, since I was a young lawyer in Monroe County, I was involved with the Young Lawyer Division. So being the Young Lawyer Division, you have to be under 40 years old. And for a while, I served on the board of the Young Lawyers Division and was very active with them. At some point, I transitioned into the Maine Bar Association. I was elected to the board of directors by my peers. I served there for 2 years before being elected vice president. The Bar Association means a lot to me because it is my peers that asked me to do that. It is my peers that elected me to do that. And for this position in particular, where you're asking to be a judge, and it is the lawyers who will appear in front of you most frequently. Sure, the public will be there, but you may have one case, maybe two. The lawyers will see you all the time. So when the lawyers ask you to run, I think that's very humbling, it's very important. But I'll also add one quick thing, as I mentioned earlier about the Consumer Protection Division at the District Attorney's Office. I did see District Attorney Mancuso walk in earlier. In terms of leadership, that is probably one of my proudest moments. When Mike and I decided that we were going to do the Consumer Protection Division here, it was a one-of-a-kind program. While we are allowed to do it under the statute, it is not something that other counties do. And we were able to lead. And for a small county like Monroe to do that, that's leadership. And that's really something I'm proud of.
I think you asked to stand up from someone in the back, so. When I first became a lawyer, and I was really introduced to this by the District Attorney's Office, I joined the Monroe County Elder Abuse Task Force, which was run by the Aging Office and the District Attorney's Office. And the head of the Aging Office kind of oversaw that program. It's since changed hands, and there's not much guidance. So I've stepped in as a leadership role to make sure that this organization, who's a mixture of the protective service agents at the Aging Office, our local banks, and hospice care workers, and community service members that protect our older adults, all come together into this organization to give back, to educate other members, EMTs, bank officers, members of the community about elder abuse, neglect, exploitation. And so I'm the only attorney that sits in that group. And I've taken on the role to formulate a larger group that comes under the umbrella of the Community Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization, so that we can raise money and do outreach programs to our community. And so I'm very proud that I've carried this since I started as a member to now this bigger organization that can give back to the community. It's important to me as an elder law attorney, as the solicitor for the Aging Office, that this group is established so that we keep an eye on our community to keep our older adults safe. I think I'll carry that forward on the bench. I recognize that Monroe County is a deficit in many different programs. We don't have any mental health services here. We don't have any services for people with dementia or special needs, older adults and children. And so, maybe not right away, but eventually we need to come together to work on community efforts to service those types of clients in this area.
How have you demonstrated leadership in your legal career, and how will that translate into your role as judge?
One of the things that I'm very proud of as a district judge is how I've spearheaded juvenile disorderly conduct cases in my court. I've come up with a pilot program, so to speak, of how to deal with children who get into fights and altercations in the school district. And I've tried to teach them that there are alternative ways to dealing with anger issues because they're not getting it in places where they should be getting it. Sometimes they have mental mental health issues, sometimes they're in need of anger management. And I think that we don't have enough services for them. We don't have enough mental health services. So I'm trying to lead the way, and I really think that we need more programs to reach these children because they don't really know that what they're doing is wrong. Their behavior is disorderly by definition, but they don't understand that. So I come up with creative solutions, which encourages, because I'm not allowed to order these things at my level, but I encourage the parents and the children to go for mental counseling, anger management, and a lot of times they really enjoy it. They learn tools and skills to deal with coping mechanisms to deal with their problems. And I would really like to continue to move forward with that at the Court of Common Pleas and the Juvenile Court, and hopefully establish and take a leadership role in establishing a mental health court for children, because I think we're in desperate need of that. We want to make sure that these kids have everything they need so that they're effective, productive adults. And as of right now, we just react punitively, and I don't think that's fair to them. And I think that's how I take a leadership role in my court and how I would like things to progress into the Court of Common Pleas.
When I was a young lawyer, my opportunities to show leadership were probably more limited because I was really more of a follower, just finding out my way around the courtroom and the courthouse and all of that. But I did get appointed to prosecute animal abuse and neglect cases. That was one of the things I did early in my career that I felt, I was also on the board of directors of the Humane Society, and that also, was a leadership position. Later, I got appointed to like an advisory board for the Third National Bank when it first came to the Poconos. And I was always active in the Bar Association, and I agree with Patrick that that's one of the ways that lawyers can show that they're committed to their community in addition to their practice. And they say the law is a jealous mistress. It is. The law always wants you. Your clients always want you, and you have to carve out time to do things for the community and to be responsive to the needs of the community. I've been involved with Women's Resources, Safe Monroe. I'm always part of the walk that they do to take back the night, which just happened a few weeks ago. I support as many of those type of organizations as I can. I'm also a member of the NCNW, and I do appreciate them being one of the sponsors tonight. I'm also a member of the NAACP, but I have a lot of PBA, all those things, they only matter to the extent that you actually pay attention to what they're doing. And we, as a county, started that fairy tale trial thing that I mentioned earlier. That was a leadership role that I had pretty early on. I was part of that committee, and I prosecuted Goldilocks, and she was convicted of stealing those things, eating that porridge and breaking that chair. But it's a great experience to be with fifth graders and teach them something about our criminal justice system in a fun, easy, non-threatening way. Anyhow, I hope I get to lead on the bench.
Being a judge holds a special place in the community. What community organizations do you belong to, and what community programs have you participated in? Okay, if you guys want to ask a different question, we can. The last one was about leadership, but they did kind of answer what organizations they belong to. If you guys want to mention more organizations, I would keep those into your questions, because some of us here do want to know what specific organizations you're members of. As a judge, would you be open to working with community organizations to develop opportunities for alternatives to incarceration? Is that something that you can expand on?
Can you repeat it one more time? Thanks.
As a judge, would you be open to working with community organizations to develop opportunities for alternatives to incarceration?
Yes. We do some of that now. We can do more. I have been talking to a bunch of organizations already. I mentioned Teresa's organization earlier, Metamorphosis, which is fantastic. They do re-entry and things of that nature, which the Bar Association's been working very closely with them. We have other organizations in the community that I've had these discussions with, including things like Northbound. We could use other programs. Kelly mentioned this earlier. Other counties have a mental health court. We don't. Other counties have a veterans court. We don't. We could, just don't. So are there other ways that we could be looking at these cases? Are there alternatives to incarceration? Of course there are. They're also cheaper, by the way. Not that that should cover how we do things, but just a side benefit. Also, we probably shouldn't be throwing everyone in jail. So, sure, there should definitely be alternatives to incarceration. And we should be working with different community partners to provide it, because there's already different organizations out there that are already looking at this. And we should rely on their expertise and partner with them and work with them. I've been doing that. I'd like to continue that work on the bench.
I'm going to try to combine both questions. I'm actively involved in our community. I also sit on the board of directors for the Monroe County Bar Association with Patrick. I am the treasurer of the Monroe Animal League, which is a nonprofit organization that is geared towards helping to spay and neuter pets and feral cats. I am a member of the Kiwanis Club, which helps our children grow and learn in our community. I'm an active member of the LWV's task force, and all of these things add to the need for services in our community. I have people near and dear to my heart that have been victims of drug use, and unfortunately Monroe County was not the place where they got their help. And now they can't live here because they live in Florida where their rehab center is. And so it's near and dear to my heart that we find solutions to these problems. And so yes, I want to actively work with our different organizations in our community. We need mental health resources. We need outlets for people that maybe don't have a need for incarceration, but some type of rehab. I also see a need for guardianship services as an active member in the elder abuse realm that I work in. I see the need for people to take protection for their older adults. And so we don't have anyone here that will act as guardian for people that can't act for themselves. And so what do? We put them in a nursing home. That's not fair. People want to live in their homes. They deserve to stay in their homes. And so we need resources here that can protect them and keep them as active members of society. We're definitely lacking in those capacities. So as much as we can do as judges, getting involved, I think we need to, and work with our local community agencies to bring those to Monroe County.
The short answer to the question is yes, I am open to working with the community to alternatives to incarceration. I think that incarceration sometimes is a catch-all answer to every question that's posed in the judicial system. Now, I do firmly believe that people who are convicted of crimes have a debt to pay to society. But what that debt is can vary. We don't have a lot of options currently in our justice system. One of the options is incarceration. But there are so many other options that are out there, including mental health services, rehabilitation, things like that. We just need more dedicated programs that have been tried and tested and that work and that are effective. We need to actually have community conversations with people and members of our community to see what exactly they are proposing. I mean, because it's easy to say we need mental health services, we need rehabilitative programs, but there aren't any out there, you know, and they're far and few between. So how do we get these people diverted away from the county jail and away from our prisons and into these programs when they just simply don't exist? So it's nice to mention that generally in passing, but we have to work with community members to make sure that there are actually tangible programs that we can use and that we can utilize to divert people out of the path to the jail.
Judge Mark will be in charge, and Judge Mark has been spearheading the Children's Roundtable for many, many years. I was involved in it for a number of years, and I've been a supporter of it more recently, but I'm not involved in it right now. But they bring together right here, in about a month, there'll be a community gathering to show what kind of resources we do have available. And we do have a lot of resources, and yes, we don't have enough, especially when it comes to mental health. And not having a dedicated mental health court is a problem because sometimes the identification of the problem doesn't come until the very last minute in the case when the judge is trying to decide how long should I incarcerate this person for, or what can I do with this person. And that's when you find out that there's not many alternatives, but sometimes a whole lot of time has passed with that person not being helped. Things that have improved in recent years, we have a pretrial services office that is addressing things so that people perhaps do not have to be in jail in order for there to be a determination of what can be done to make them less of a danger to themselves or to the community while they're awaiting a trial. Mike Mancuso, again, I'm the Mike Mancuso fan club here today, but the LEDI program that they've put together called the Law Enforcement Treatment Initiative is something I've been very loud in my support of because they're giving everybody in the criminal justice system, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a magisterial district judge, whether it's a family member, the opportunity to ask for treatment for the person who's been accused of a nonviolent crime before they get plugged into the criminal justice system, before they have a record, before they're in a position where they're going to have to climb out of that hole in order to get back into being a productive person in society. So I'm happy about the things that we are doing, and it's the reason that I am participating in the Criminal Justice Advisory Board is so that I know about these things and am able to help my clients with them.
There's very little I can really add to what the other candidates have said. I mean, obviously, the straightforward answer is yes. You know, absolutely willing to use any sort of resource to keep people from being incarcerated, if at all possible, as long as it is the appropriate, as Judge Levy said, you know, the appropriate punishment for justice that is happened for that offense. Now, one thing I feel very passionate about in regards to alternative means of incarceration is a veterans court. I'm actually very disappointed to hear that we don't have anything of that nature whatsoever here in Monroe County. That is something I've seen that has been very effective. My uncle is a social worker for VA, and I get roped into helping him on a regular basis and advising him on how to help his clients that he's working with in addressing their legal issues. So, you know, I have firsthand knowledge of how some of these veteran courts apply to help these veterans that are having both mental issues and drug issues to deal with those and keep them from being incarcerated. And it's an invaluable resource. That is something I will definitely advocate for, and I would actually hope to see that happen no matter who gets elected to this bachelor of this path.
The next question is, approximately how many civil and criminal jury trials have you conducted in Monroe County, and how will that inform your work on the bench?
Well, I was a prosecutor for several years, as I said, and I can't put into number how many jury trials I've actually had. More than 10, probably more than 20, all the way from DUIs, I've done terroristic threats, homicide. But the one that sticks out in my mind, which I will tell you about, is prior to when I started in 2011, there was a law that said that you could be convicted of delivering drugs to someone, but you actually had to have malice and the intent to kill that person. And so in 2011, became a prosecutor at the end of 2011, the law changed. And you only had to have the reckless behavior of delivering that drug to someone and it caused their death, and you could be held accountable. And so as an ADA, everyone is on call for a week. And anytime a police officer needs you in the middle of the night, they can call you for help. And I happened to be on call one night, and I got a phone call from Pocono Township, and a young man had overdosed from heroin. And we were able to link back that particular brand of heroin to two people, the person that gave it to him and the person that sold it to him. And I was able to convict him of a drug delivery resulting in death. And so that was really the first time since 2011 when that law changed that we were able to do that conviction. And it set the path for other law enforcement agencies and people holding people accountable for delivering drugs. So now we're getting not the user off the street, but the dangerous person that's delivering drugs to our families, to our children. And so I'm very proud of that accomplishment. I'm not sure I answered your question. With that experience, though, I've really been able to carry forward my trial work. I've had the experience of selecting juries, that's a whole process, and bringing people to conviction. So I'm very proud of that.
I have been a trial attorney my entire legal career as an attorney. I've tried over 100 cases, I've had over 60 jury verdicts. I even teach trial advocacy to young attorneys. I have not had any trials in Monroe County or jury verdicts in Monroe County because basically most of my cases resolve before we get to that level. And if it's a good result, there's no reason to push it. It's not in the best interest of your client. But as a judge, I presided over dozens of trials and rendered decisions on dozens of cases. So I don't know if that answers the question. I think the question was how many, it was just very specific, right? Okay, I don't think I gave a specific answer. Thank you.
As part of my work getting ready for this campaign, I printed out a sheet from the AOPC of just my Court of Common Pleas cases. And the AOPC's record system doesn't go back as far as I go back in this county. But, and certainly some of the cases that I've won at trial that my clients have had the benefit of getting their records expunged, so those aren't there anymore. But the sheet that I printed out was 48 pages long and had 10 cases on every page. Oh my God. I have represented a lot of people and a lot of different kinds of cases. I haven't had as many civil trials as I've had criminal trials because civil trials do settle a lot more frequently. But I've tried multiple civil cases in different counties, and I've tried drug delivery resulting in death cases. I've tried multiple homicide cases, homicide by motor vehicle, straight criminal homicide, first-degree murder cases. I've tried a death penalty case, and I am actively involved in another death penalty case. I have a great deal of trial experience. Almost all of it is in Monroe County, but I have tried cases in Northampton, Lehigh, Pike. I think that's it. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I am admittedly on the opposite side of the spectrum of Janet in this aspect of it. I have not had a single jury trial in Monroe County. All my trial experience is out of county, whether it's Michigan or Northampton County, and where, and for the most part, even now, so far, most of my cases, whether they're in civil or criminal cases, have settled. It seems I am able to find resolutions to my cases that are to the benefit of either the defendants, if criminal cases or whether it's, you know, to both parties in the civil cases so far. And there's been some criminal cases where I couldn't get the defendant to go to trial no matter how hard I tried. There's always aspects of trying to postpone them. But you know, it's not a matter of so much of the jury trial experience in Monroe County, it's whether or not it's knowing the aspects of how to run a case and do it both proficiently and efficiently. And that's what I've been more than capable of doing throughout my career, and it's what I would continue to do and expect of attorneys that come before me to move the cases through both efficiently and hopefully as equitably as possible.
Yes, with the specificity of that question, jury trials in Monroe County, I handled, I have to count a handful, a dozen. A lot of my trial experience is out of county, some of it is in the federal system, but a lot of my trial experience is actually bench trial. So like when we think of trial, because of the way we watch things on TV, we always think of jury trials, but there's a lot of things in Pennsylvania that you don't have a right to a jury trial. And a lot of my trial work is bench trial work. That means you just have the trial in front of the judge, not in front of the jury. The judge makes the decision, you don't have a right to a jury. And a lot of that work is family law. So family law, there's no jury. Mortgage work, no right to a jury. So things of that nature, which I have done quite a bit, is bench trial. I have a lot of reported decisions that are bench trial decisions. But I have handled, and I mentioned this earlier, I've handled a murder trial, I've handled large personal injury matters, I've handled complex class action cases, and to everybody else's point, yes, a lot of the civil cases settle, a lot of the ones that don't get jury trials. But I do have some experience here in Monroe County. I would say I have more experience actually conducting the trials as a hearing officer, because in those cases, again, it's also a bench trial, no jury, but I've conducted them and issued the decisions on them. Also note, Kelly mentioned earlier that she was a law clerk to Judge Sealam. I was also a law clerk, didn't even mention this. I was a law clerk to Judge Carmen Monroe in Lackawanna County, and Judge Monroe had a procedure in Lackawanna where he let the law clerks do most of the actual jury selection work and things like that with the litigants. So I ran many jury trials when I clerked for Judge Monroe, dozens on that side, assisting the judge in running them. So I'm familiar with running jury trials in addition to handling the jury trials.
So we are going to wrap up. I'm going to give each candidate 2 more minutes to give a closing statement, starting with Jamie Lee.
Again, I want to thank the board of voters and our sponsors for this event, for having this forum and allowing the candidates to introduce themselves to this audience. I want to thank you all for being here and being active participants by handing up questions. And I just wanted to close by saying we've learned a bunch about the candidates today. Hopefully it's enough for you to make a determination. If not, all of us have websites and more information out there. But I did want to say one thing about myself. I'm the only judge in this race. I'm the only candidate with any judicial experience. You're going to hear a lot from the candidates, and you have, how experience matters. And I'm the only one with any judicial experience. And I'm the only person who they call Your Honor and judge when they enter my courtroom. So I agree with all of them wholeheartedly. Experience does matter. And please weigh that and factor that into your decision, as a judge would when rendering a determination as to who you're going to vote for in this election. I thank you for your time. Once again, I'm Jamie Levy. I'm running to be a judge on the Court of Common Pleas. And I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for your support. Take care.
I'm not running for the Court of Common Pleas in order for anyone to call me Your Honor. I'm running for the Court of Common Pleas to serve this community, to listen impartially, and with integrity to the most important things that affect the lives of the people in this community. That's why I'm running for Judge of the Court of Common Pleas. It's not about fame or glory or fortune for me. It is about service to this community and bringing my best qualities to the bench, and to treat every single person who comes before me with dignity and decency and patience. That's what a good judge needs to do. I've had the good fortune to be in front of many good judges, and I'll be trying to bring the best of what I've learned from them to the bench. I've also been in front of judges who are in a hurry, who are impatient, who lose their temper easily. I don't want to be that kind of judge. And I know that this is a really hard job. It's not, I can't promise you exactly what I'm going to be, but I know what I'm going to try to be. I'm going to try to be fair, patient, decent. And I'm going to try to make the right decision. That's what my parents taught me. They were just regular people with regular problems. They weren't, all of my brothers and sisters and I are first generation college graduates and first generation to belong to professional school. So, hello? Sorry. Anyhow, I just appreciate you listening and using your best judgment to let us make the best judgment we can for you.
I'll finally stand up. Yeah, thank you for everyone come here and give their point of view into a lot of these things. And I still encourage everybody, you've heard, we really can't put everything that we would want to say and be able to express to everybody in 2 minutes. It's just not possible. It's not going to happen. You're not going to learn everything about us. You're not going to learn, really who we are, and even here. It's not going to happen. So I encourage you to continue doing your research, continue looking at everybody, listen to what's out there and available that you can find while we're still campaigning, and obviously there's going to be some possible changes after the primary. But continue doing the research and pick the two individuals you believe very firmly are going to represent your beliefs, have that integrity to do what's right all the time, and make those tough decisions even if they're unpopular. And follow the law. That's what is important in all these judicial races, to have those judges that are going to follow the law no matter what, and not be afraid to stand up to criticism and, on some that it's unpopular to follow the law. It's just, you got to have those people that are going to have that integrity and inner fortitude. So, again, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody for coming, and thank you.
Right, thank you again to everybody. I know this was a long night. Thank you to the league. Thank you to NCNW. Thank you to Youth Infusion and the youth who participated. Thank you all for taking the time to listen and make an informed choice. You've heard a lot about my experience tonight. I'm not going to belabor it. Happy to talk to anybody offline. We'll take the opportunity to thank my wife and my children for supporting me, because this is not easy. It is a lot to ask to run a countywide campaign, particularly one that is in such a condensed time frame. And boy, they're troopers. And if you've seen the billboards, I'm sure you've seen all 4 of the kids, but they do all of that willingly. So, most of the time. So, thank you for the support, and again, thank you everybody, and please, I'd appreciate your support, and consider voting for me. Thank you.
It's hard to say what you want to say in 2 minutes. For me, I'm doing this because this is the community that I live in, that I have grown up in, that I am raising my children in. And it's important to me that we have leaders in this community who are going to give back and to protect us, because we don't want to live here. We want to raise our children here. My 90-year-old grandfather lives here. And so I believe in integrity. I believe you should choose a judge who understands the law, will take the time to learn the law, and will make sure that they're listening fairly to every single person that comes before them. I believe a judge has to have experience. I think we talked about that very extensively tonight. I've had a very broad experience, from a legal clerk to a prosecutor. We've not had a judge who's a prosecutor on the bench since Judge Linda Miller. I also believe in compassion. I'm a mom. Don't get me wrong, I've been a prosecutor. I know how to stand up and fight for what is right and make sure that we are safe. But I also have compassion. I tuck my children into bed each night, hoping for the best for them, because this is where we live. And I want to keep them safe, but I want to raise good humans. And we have to give back to our community to make sure that we are all good to each other. And so you have to have some compassion. You never know who you're dealing with, what kind of life that they come from. So it's important to listen, but also to give people a voice. And so, although you've only had the last 2 hours to get to know us, please do your research. Come talk to us. Ask the questions you want to ask. I'm sure there were plenty more questions out there tonight that were not answered. So please take the time to get to know us. And please come out and vote on May 20th, because this is very important to all of us, to our families, to our committees, and the people that have dedicated their time to our campaigns, and to all of you. So thank you for your support tonight.